Hey guys, Allison here, and today I am tackling day number 9 of LOAD218. I know I made that mistake yesterday. Today is day number 9, and I was featured designer, so I've already done a layout for this prompt, but in the spirit of LOAD, I do want to make a layout every day, so I'm going to make another one in the spirit of the prompt. Now, are you ready? Because I have some really creepy pictures I'm going to be scrapbooking. If you have at all a fear of these, then I would just turn off the video right now. Yeah. Today is a day that I am going to scrapbook about giant spiders. Yep. Okay, we're going to cover those up now. So I have figured out my photo placement. I've got 2 sheets of cardstock in the back. They're kind of, I guess the best color to describe it would be grayish. And then I've pulled some papers to put on the rest of the layout. I've got a blue to pick up. There's a couple of the photos have a bit of a blue light to them. So I've picked up a blue to go with that. This is Chamel's from Starshine. This is Mariner. And then from Dots and Stripes by Echo Park. This is called Caramel. And I've got either side. The polka dots to me are a little bit too happy for this layout, so I probably won't use those, but I like having the option between the two. Now this is a Gossamer Blue. I previously cut the branding strip off because I was going to use it on another layout and then never did. But I don't know if you can see that. I like how it's kind of topographical, and it's dark charcoal with black. So considering our prompt has to do with following your own path, I kind of thought this could work. And then this is another Gossamer Blue page, and I had it in my stash this way up because it's sort of like a dark, like either like a midnight blue or black. It's hard to tell what color it is exactly. This is called Gossamer Blue number 4, designed by In a Creative Bubble. But I quite like this one. It's like a very deep olivey green. And I thought even just a band of that, not the white, that's too bright. I want to keep this quite dark actually. But yeah, so that's an option. And then I've got, I'm really digging deep into my stash. These have some damage to them. This is Authentique. Rejoice. The other side looks like that, but that's not really anything that I would use. So nice distressed wood grain. And then this is from My Mind's Eye Collectible. Remarkable. Authentic. I don't know what this is called. Anyways, I liked it. It's blues, but it's got that nice distressing that could work. This is also from the collectible line, and I don't think I meant to pull this out. I think it was just stuck to the other one, so we'll get rid of that. And then, when else am I going to scrapbook about spider webs except for Halloween? So I've brought in this. It's actually a cut-apart sheet, so I could even use that. But I think some strips of that are probably appropriate. Okay, I'm going to put this one back, and then I'm going to get cutting. So I'm just realizing that on the video there, that spiderweb paper kind of looks like eyeballs, but either way, it's creepy. Okay, so my plan is to sort of build my base layers and then figure out, well, I already know approximately how my photos are going to go, but I'm just going to cut some boxes of paper to build that base beneath it, and then I can finalize the photo placement. So I've cut a box of that Authentique wood grain, and then I just cut the blue paper from the Starshine collection in half, and I would like to accentuate that sort of midnight blue, so keeping those nice and big. And I'm inking all my edges with gray, and now I'm getting ready to put everything down. I cut 2 strips of the spider web paper. I think they're 2 inches wide, and when I was placing them down there, I wasn't sure if I wanted them above the blue paper or below the blue paper, but I do eventually decide to tuck them behind, just like you see there. But I feel like it needs more. More is more, right? So I cut that strip of dark green just to see what it looks like against the paper, and I like it, but I'm not super convinced. But I decided to go ahead and cut out a second strip in case I want it. And then I realized that it needs another box of paper on the right, just to sort of bulk it out a bit. So I think I just cut like a 6-inch strip of that gossamer blue sort of topographical paper. And then I take that all to my trimmer and trim off the edges so that I can line them up on the other side again. Just making sure everything is stuck down properly. So once this is all stuck down, then I can get to work on the blue. The paper has a very, very subtle sort of distressed box, I guess, around the perimeter of it. And I had to flip that side because I had it sort of upside down to the other paper. And I wanted to have them in the same orientation so that the distressed box is sort of down at the bottom of the layout. It's very, very subtle. You can barely tell, but and then I decided to tuck that behind and just have one row of spider webs showing. And it's always more complicated to get that second strip in than it was to get the first. Make sure the two backgrounds are lined up, make sure it's straight. But finally, I'm at a place where I can start adding my photos. And I realize that these photos are so dark against mostly dark background that I really need to brighten them up a bit. So that's where this dots and stripes paper can come in. And I was planning on having them all in a row anyways, so I'm just adding, or just leaving a little bit of a border on either side so that you can get that brightness. And then they stand out from the background. And now I got my other 4 that I'm going to play with. Now I've already cut one of them down to a 4x4 square. And then the one on the top left that I've just taken off, I realized that there's a bunch of people I don't know along the bottom. So I cut off 1 inch along the bottom, and then I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to have a square like the other one. So I cut 1 inch off the top, or well, almost 1 inch. And then I decide to mount them on that same dots and stripes paper, just to bring that over onto the left side. And also to give them a little bit more prominence. Not that they're particularly fantastic photos, but because they are smaller, I felt like they could handle the mat, and they wouldn't get lost, or they wouldn't take over. It would be a good balance. So now my photos are done. So now it's time to start thinking about title placement and embellishment, where I want to put things. So that's when I pull in that olive green paper and I decide to make little strips. I do one down there with the sort of close-up shot of Aragog. Ugh, yuck. And then another one over by the side there. And I figure that I haven't quite figured out at this point where my title is going to go or what it's going to say, but I figure that in one of those spots it'll be good. And then I had a little bit left over, so I just put it up there, and that makes a nice visual triangle. So then I took a little break to go and find some embellishments. And I knew that a few years ago I had cut all these spider webs out of black cardstock, and I had made up little kits. And I couldn't find them, so I had to go hunting for them. But I eventually found them, and there's 2 that are mounted on basically like a dictionary paper, and then some that are just the spider web, and I thought they'd be perfect as embellishments all around. And I had also grabbed various die cut sheets. This is a Teresa Collins pack. It's a whole lot of flowers that you can layer up. And I don't want to use them as flowers. I don't think flowers are appropriate for this layout of a dark and gloomy forest with giant spiders that come down and attack you. But the colors are good, and I think I can cut them apart in such a way that you're not going to know that they are flowers. And then I spent some time going through the, this is a basic gray, actually, die cut pack. Probably one of the last ones that they made, and I've hardly put a dent into it. So I just pull out anything that is blue or gray, or there's a few sort of clear acrylic shapes as well, and figure I can try and scatter those around. The other motif that I wanted to bring in is arrows. The prompt talks about not staying on the path, but making your own path. And in this layout, I want to talk about or emphasize that sometimes you do need to stay on the path. Do not deviate from the path, because horrible things await you when you deviate from the path. So I've got some wood veneer arrows, and then a couple of cardstock arrows from I can't remember who made that, Fancy Pants, I think, die cut pack. And then I've just pulled out various other bits and pieces, and most of it doesn't make it onto the layout, but it's always good to have choices. And when I placed that large arrow there, I thought it would be a good spot for my title. So I have got some glittery Heidi Swap letter stickers in silver, and I'm going to go ahead and put my title there, and then it can kind of sit on top of that arrow. I've put foam squares behind the arrow so that it will sit above the title, like sit higher than the title. So I'm just still working on, I had to figure out if I had all the right letters, because that sheet is fairly picked over, and there's not a lot of multiples of letters. And then this is a pack from My Mind's Eye. There's a whole bunch of tiled letter stickers. So now my title is The Dark Forest. So I'm working on my embellishment areas. And so that's the big flower, but I cut it in not quite half, and then I've placed the spider web in a spot where I don't think it's sort of obvious that it's a flower. And then I took a circle punch, and I sort of punched out some of the petals from a different flower and scattered them in so they just look more like circles. And then the sentiment on the top of that card was not appropriate, but I liked the galaxy images on it and the color, obviously. So I'm going to tuck that in as well. So I'm just moving around from embellishment area, and I'm trying to repeat elements. So I had that flower down in the lower right corner, so I'm going to bring the other half of it up to the top. And then there's a little label. I don't have anything to really write on the label, but I just liked that it had blue, and that was bringing that same blue up there. And I just glued on a little acrylic shape, and then I will put something over top so you can't see the glue. There I go. See, I put a little blue star. So I am bringing the blue up there, and I've got that same cream, and now I'm going back and forth. This is how I work. I go back and forth between my embellishment areas so that I can make sure that they're all going to be cohesive. And then I decide that I really want to bring attention to the fact that this is Aragog. And I know I already have a title, so this is kind of like a subtitle, even though the letters are just as big, and it's in fact the same font basically, but these are chipboard letter stickers rather than the other ones, which are foam, but they're black glittery, and they're both Heidi Swap. But I think because it's black on the dark green, it's not quite as obvious a title as the Dark Forest one, which is nice and silver and bright. So I'm just continuing to embellish, and for a moment there I think I'm not going to put all those spider webs all over the layout, and then I realized that no, I really liked them there. So I put them back. But this time I'm committing and I'm gluing them down. And I want to make sure that I have something in the center of each one of those so that it sort of hides the glue. So I'm just going through all the little bits and pieces that I've pulled out to see what will fit in. And I've got these wood veneer arrows, and I decide to make a grouping of arrows over here just to emphasize the idea of following a path and entering something, anything that an arrow sort of represents to you. And I'm still continuing to find space or find places for all the little bits that I've pulled out. And that was an acrylic star with a blue border. And so I have an acrylic piece in the top embellishment area. So I wanted to have another one there. And then I do it off camera, but I do add another one to, I believe the spider web right above the journaling. So that piece of blue pattern paper is sort of the perfect size to fit my story in, and because it is dark, I go for my white pen. And I wasn't really aiming to lighten up the layout at all, but I don't think that it's I don't think it detracts from it or makes it feel lighter, if that makes sense. This is it's a very dark place, and I want the layout to feel quite dark, and I don't think that my white journaling has detracted from that. And I wanted to emphasize that in this particular case you need to stay on the path, so I put in another little subtitle that says "Keep on the Path," with more of those tiled letters, the My Mind's Eye ones. And now it's time to add some sparkle. And unfortunately my camera cut out before I was finished, but I pulled out some of the silver and black sequins from those kits that I had put together a long time ago, and I have scattered them around. So you'll be able to see that in the close-up. So here I am, this is it finished. And sorry for all the spider pictures, but it was definitely a part of the experience and the day. I will be doing another layout from the Dark Forest about the Patronuses and whatnot. So there's a good look at some of those little die-cut spider webs that I added. I'm so glad I was able to find them. Oh, and I added some silver mist, some silver Heidi Swap mist as well, just to amp up the sparkle factor. All right, so thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.